know, whenever we sing that, he wrote the cutest songs. I met him at a minister conference, and you know, he's kind of a quiet guy, so I was going, oh, he wrote this, awesome. You know, so look what happens when it comes out. All right, so every week I start with something a little bit humorous, and this one I haven't read to you guys in a long time. So this one is, for those of you who have pets, this is a true story. For those of you that don't, it's also a true story. The following was found posted very low on a refrigerator door. Dear dogs and cats, and my cats have been annoying me, so I want to read this one today. The dishes on the floor with the paw prints are yours and contain food. The other dishes are mine and contain my food. Placing a paw print in the middle of my plate does not mean it is suddenly your food, nor do I find that aesthetically pleasing in the slightest. The stairway is not designed by NASCAR and is not a racetrack. Racing me to the top of the stairs is not the object. Tripping me doesn't help because I fall faster than you can run. I cannot buy anything bigger than a king-size bed. I'm very sorry about this. Do not think I will continue sleeping on the couch to ensure your comfort. Dogs and cats can actually curl up in a ball when they sleep. It is not necessary to sleep perpendicular to each other, stretched out to the fullest extent possible. I also know that sticking tails straight out and having tongues hanging out on the other end to maximize space that you are taking up is nothing but sarcasm. For the last time, there is no secret exit from the bathroom. If by some miracle I beat you there and manage to get the door shut, it is not necessary to claw, whine, meow, try to turn the knob, or get your paw under the edge and attempt to open the door. I must exit through the same door I entered. Also, I've been using this bathroom for years. Feline attendance is not required. The proper order for kissing is kiss me first, then go smell the other dog or cat's butt. I cannot stress this enough. Finally, in fairness, dear pets, I have posted the following message on the front door to all non-pet owners who visit and complain about our pets. Number one, they live here, you don't. Number two, if you don't like their hair on your clothes, stay off the furniture. That's why they call it furniture. I definitely have that in my house. Number three, I like my pets a lot better than I like most people. Okay, number four, to you, they are animals. To me, they are adopted sons and daughters who are short, hairy, walk on all fours, and don't speak clearly. Remember, dogs and cats are better than kids because they, number one, eat less. Number two, don't ask for money all the time. Number three, they're easier to train. Number four, normally come when called. Number five, never ask to drive the car. Number six, don't hang out with drug-using people. Number seven, don't smoke or drink. Number eight, don't want to wear your clothes. Number nine, don't have to buy the latest fashions. Number 10, don't need $1 gazillion for college. And finally, number 11, if they get pregnant, you can sell their children. Well, hang on to it, Diana. What do you want to say?
It's a humor.
Okay.
Okay, it's my birthday was on Tuesday, and
Happy birthday.
my son sent a card that had 4 dogs and cats playing poker at a table.
Yes.
And the first one is looking like this, and the others are kind of trying to figure out what he's saying. He's saying, straight flush must not wag tail. Must
That is so cute. Oh my God, right? That's adorable. Yeah, a cat would be a better poker player, right? Cats
Oh yeah,
poker
yeah,
players,
yeah.
Because they're just like, they're like zen. They don't care.
The cat plays it. The cat's the one that's really looking.
Yeah, they were really
Yeah, he
looking.
knows what's going on.
Absolutely. That was cute. So, today I wanted to talk about the undefended heart because Reverend Karen Wiley, who used to be in Ojai, who's here from Ojai, and she was down, and it was called, believe it was called the Symphony of Life at that time. And she wrote this, and I said, oh, I like that, the undefended heart. Because it's really about allowing ourselves to open up, not only to ourselves, we have to open to ourselves first, but we also have to open up to other people. So I was, thinking about, I was with my daughter, and I'm thinking, ooh, I really need to have to talk to her because what was happening, she has become a control freak and with the second baby. And I thought she was going to let it go and, oh, a second baby, you don't have time to try to micromanage everything. So after a while, her husband says, honey, we really need to go and take a vacation. So they went to Hawaii for 4 or 5 days. And I thought, in order for me to share my heart with her, we're going to have a conversation. So I had this whole conversation in my head, and, I really feel like, we would have a closer relationship if we were able to talk a little bit more, and you would let go of micromanaging me, and Mom, this is wrong, Mom, that's wrong. And so finally, I said, okay, just let it go, but don't be angry about it. Don't be upset, because I have never had a second child. She's my only one. And so I had to have the compassion that it must be crazy to have a second child. EJ knows he's got 2, and it's crazy. So anyway, fast forward, I was down there, and I actually thought this is how we get shut down. And I'm going to share this. If she ever sees this, she knows, I already told her. I had actually thought about not even going down and visiting very much because it was getting that insidious and that crazy. Have you ever been around anybody like that that's doing that and just like, rah, 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 rah. So anyway, I got down there and totally different. Let my granddaughter go on the iPad. She let me, make her lunch without telling me how to make it. Everything. And it was so beautiful. And I said to her, what happened? And she said, well, when I got away, I had another perspective. I was able to go into my heart and to see what I was doing with myself. And she was able to let go of that control and let her heart be opened to the children, let her heart be undefended, because she was able to now express and be who she really is. She reminded me of who she used to be like when she was growing up, because this kid was happy and a little partier, and so, it reminded me of that, and that she, by taking that time just to be and allow, then she was able to shift herself, and it was quite lovely. And I said, and that night I had spent the night, and she woke up and she had insomnia, and she was worrying because they were buying a house. And I got up and I made her tea at like 3 in the morning to calm her down. And she said to me, and my heart just opened up last week, she said, Mom, she said, that was so amazing that you got up at 3 in the morning to make me tea. And I go, well, that's because you couldn't sleep, and neither could I. Anyway, no. But really what happened is that, it helped us become closer. So when we aren't criticizing, when we aren't, judging other people, and I had to look at myself. And here's the thing that happens. We have a listening, and I'm going to explain that. And a listening means that we have a certain way of being with our mom and dad, with our brothers and sisters, with our boyfriends, with our husbands, our wives, with our friends. And that listening causes us to shut down and have a defended heart. And I'm starting to become aware, and this is what this is about. It's about becoming aware how we are when we're around other people. And when you're really going to see it is when you're with your family. And you're really going to see it when you're with a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, or you've been around them since you were a little girl. And there's this feeling tone, isn't there? And it's like you go home and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 8 again. Because the mom's a certain way or the dad's a certain way. So I'll give you another story about that. So, you know, for years, and this is when, you know, you really have to have that communication and shift the listening. Here's what's hard. Our brain is hardwired to have things be a certain way. And if we don't take the time to become awake and aware about that, the way that our brain is and the way we have certain ways of thinking, that we can't shift. So liken it to, we're in our little, you know, Douglas said it earlier, we're in a comfortable little cocoon. We're all in our cocoon and life is good, and I'm going to just keep it this way. Because if I pop out of it, woo, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen if I move away, get rid of that, punch out of that cocoon, work my way out of it? As Douglas was saying, it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to shift and grow and have a whole new way of being in our life, because we're not wired that way. We're wired to keep everything the status quo, aren't we? We're wired to have that. So here's a couple of stories I wanted to share just to illustrate this. So growing up, you know, I grew up in a traditional family, and my mom and dad, my dad worked for the phone company, you know, a good federal job. Yeah, it was a good job, you know. You need to become a phone operator. Oh, okay, I am not going to do that. Come on now. Are you kidding me? Oh, a phone operator? You know, look, one ringy dingy, you know, who was the one? Ruth Buzzy, right? Okay, I could just, Lily Tomlin. Okay, I am not going to be the phone operator. Anyway, so my dad, and oh, you need to get real. And so eventually, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do, but it wasn't going to be a phone operator. So I ended up marrying somebody. Where was I? I don't know. My one girlfriend says, oh, let's just look at the paper for a job. And I'm like, yeah, I'm spontaneous. Let's do it. So I ended up in the garment industry. And that's where they manufacture the clothes down in downtown LA. And that's where I met my first husband. Thank God, because I wouldn't have Natalie. But what happened is that, you know, my path was so different than the traditional path of my father. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom because I have 4 brothers, so there's 5 kids. Can you imagine 5 kids? Oh my gosh, shoot me now. Anyway, so it's like, I mean, that is a lot of work. Anyway, so I'm in that job and I'm thinking, yeah, I want to get into sales. That's where the money is, you know. And meantime, you know, I was just working as admin and working in an office, blah, blah, blah. And then I meet my husband, who walks in with his little bow ties, and he's a salesman, you know, so the rest is history with that goes. But fast forward to, I moved into the insurance business, and I became a sales rep for the insurance business. And I remember one day I called my mom, or my mother called me, and she started berating me. And I have a younger brother who's also very entrepreneurial. And right now, I can't say this. Okay, so right now he's in the medical assistance growing program. So anyway, so what happened is that I said, you know, there's a way of being with us that, you know, we always want to please our mom and our dad, right? Our mom and our dad could be the worst person on the planet, and they could be a nightmare, but there's this little child that just wants to please them, and you want them to say, I love you. No matter what you do, you want the unconditional love. I love you, I love you. And, you know, my daughter is doing a fantastic job with the kids, because she'll sing to my granddaughter every night. She sings her Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Then she sings her, Mommy loves you, Mommy loves you, yes I do. Isn't that beautiful? Can you imagine if we had, did anybody have a mom like that? Did Mommy sing to you when you did? Okay, that's why you're so happy, Barbara. All right, and seriously, you know, because when a mother does that, that ensures the child to have this confidence and to feel good about themselves. And then we don't have to go through all this stuff that we go through in order to all the classes and the healing and the seminars and all this stuff, right? Because we didn't get that love. Okay, so back to the conversation with my mom. So my mom is starting to say, you need to get a regular job, because I've always been on straight commission. And, you know, I had the regular job for a while, and then I go, whoa, sales is where you gotta be. So I was always on straight commission, and so she said, you need to get a regular job, and you need to have a regular paycheck, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, that's really nice, and that ain't happening anymore. And as we all know, the whole world has changed. There's no more gold watch. There's no more security with your pension plan. That doesn't happen. And yes, are there jobs like that? Yes, there are. But not the ones that I want to do. And the ones that I want to do are the ones where I have more freedom and I'm able to do what I desire, okay? So with that, I said, you know, as she's going, and I said, all Brent and I want to do, my younger brother, all we want to do is just please you. And all we want from you is to say, I love you. That's it. And we hung up the phone. You know, that conversation shifted both of us. And my mom and I are now closer than we've ever been because I had the courage to open up my heart and to say that and be vulnerable. And think about the times when aren't we vulnerable? When aren't we willing to open ourselves? And when aren't we willing to put ourselves at risk? You know, we're using a book by Mark Nepo, and he's a poet, but he wrote a book called 7,000 Ways to Listen. Have you all read any of his stuff at all? It's fantastic. He's been on, I know, he's been on Oprah, he's been on Soul Sunday, and he also wrote, and I don't know if he wrote a book, the other titles, but he calls it exquisite risking. Exquisite risking is that when we put ourselves out there, when we allow ourselves to risk, it's exquisite. It's painful, but it's an exquisite risk. And you know, when you think about it, you said you're visioning on it, right, Douglas? Isn't the vision like, it feels good, doesn't it? And it feels like, oh my gosh, the possibilities, you know, Deepak Chopra, you have endless possibilities. So when you do, you know, it allows you to open to that. And I loved it because I was reading I was listening to a gal, her name's Tara Branch. Have you ever heard of Tara? Tara is a Buddhist teacher. And Tara was really talking about how what we do is that we seek approval all the time. You know, when the three of us were sharing up here, you know, mine was, and this is mine, and we're right now on Facebook Live, oh God, don't look at me, because if you really see who I am, you're going to see I'm a fraud, or you're going to see she's not that great, or whatever the case may be, right? And it's always about allowing ourselves to love ourselves so much, that's what we sang the song, to feel secure in order for us to move past needing that sense of approval from outside of us. Because the work is always inside. The work is always in here. And it's always about looking out, wow. So what I'm really afraid of is that people are going to judge me online and they're going to make snarky comments, you know? And they never do. Our worst fears are never going to happen. And that's all I'm going to tell you. And there's a book called, I can't remember the name of it, it'll come to me in a minute. But what he tells you to do is write down everything you're afraid of, put it in a drawer, look at it 30 days later, and none of it has ever happened. Have you ever tried that exercise? Because it's, Dale Carnegie, that's who said to do that. And that was my very first self-help book, because it really taught me how to start loving myself, honoring myself, and taking care of myself. So, you know, the thing about an undefended heart is that we're willing to communicate with each other. We're willing to tell each other things. You know, over the years I've been with the man I've been dating for 14 years. And there's times, and I share with the guys, there's times when he gets upset because he's in his 70s. And so at that, you know, whether it's a man thing or whether it's a generational thing, a way that they were taught, you know, you don't cry, you know, he'll have a scotch and water. Well, after his mom died, and drink 3 or 4 or 5 of those, but he won't cry, okay? Which is fascinating to me. But that's how he grieves. So I just honor him right where he is, and that's what he does. And I also noticed, that he'll hold it in and hold it in, and finally he'll be like, on me, and I'm like, whoa, dude, where'd that come from? And what's really important is for us to have that communication with each other in order to feel comfortable. But if in a relationship and you've got to be the one to generate it, then do it. Because it's going to open up both of you. And it's scary. And I've had to do that over these years at least 30 to 40 times in our relationship, at least. And that's what happens, because then you're going to be able to get more connected in your heart. You're going to become closer. And it's incredible, because I'll ask him questions and I'll ask him things, and he'll go, I've never thought about that. And nobody has ever asked me that before. And I go, I bet, brother, I bet. You've been married 4 times? That's it. You never did open. And it's about allowing ourselves, and it's not just him, it's our society has a listening that we shut down, and if we are vulnerable, what's our fear if we're vulnerable? What's our fear?
People will laugh at it.
Yeah, people laugh, what else? What else?
You get ostracized.
Yeah, you get ostracized, oh, that's a good one.
Everyone will leave.
Everybody will leave, okay. What was that?
Use it against you.
Oh, that's the one. That's mine. They'll use it against you because you shared your heart. Now they're going to take it and rip it out. It's like once upon a time. And pull that heart out of your chest. But that's not what happens. What happens is that when we share our heart, that energy, that flow, because you're using your heart brain, that energy will shift them. That love will heal them. That love will open them up. And it's fantastic. And I've seen it time and time again. And I've done it so many times. And I think about over the years, when I've done that and I've shared from that space. It didn't work right away with my ex-husband. But what did work is that I kept seeding it. And so I'm going to tell you, don't give up, because you don't want to shut down when somebody has got so much anger and pain. And I remember, that he was just so mad at me because I left him. So he had a heart attack, and he had a second heart attack, and I called him one day and I said, so are you ready to put this behind us? I said, let's just be okay with each other. Would you mind? No, it's all your fault. Everything in my life is your fault. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Then I tried again years later. Then I tried again years later. Now, what ended up happening is that my daughter and I and my son-in-law went to a self-help workshop. We all went, which was probably the coolest thing that we ever did. And what ended up after that is that my daughter was able to have an authentic conversation with her father. And she sat him down and she said, pretty much what I said to my mom that time, all I've ever wanted is for us to love each other. All I've ever wanted is for everybody to get along. And, I just want to know, why are you so angry? Why are you still carrying that pain around with you? Come on, man, it's been 40 years or whatever it's been. And he said, well, because she, outside of him. She did this, she did that. And then finally she said, okay, are you ready to let that go now, Dad? Are you ready to let it go? So when he was crying and they got into such an authentic conversation, it shifted them, and now they're connected and they're compatible. What ended up happening at the birth of her second baby is that I've had to let go, and I'll tell you my part in it because you're going to relate to this. And I'm like, no, I'm the good guy. He's the bad guy. He's Darth Vader. Oh, I've got the saber, And so the lightsaber. And so anyway, I'm going, do I really want him to be nice and sweet to me? Whoa, that's a new paradigm. I've got to break out of my cocoon and be a whole different person around that. I have to open up my heart. Oh, I don't open up my heart to him. And I didn't realize that was going on. See, this is the conversation underneath. It's underneath. It's underneath. and it's buried and it's buried. So my cocoon, I'm all cozy. There's probably 10, 20 layers. And I'm like, oh, peel that one off. Oh, I don't know. You know, and you keep going. So what ended up happening is that because he opened his heart, and it wasn't the Rev that opened her heart, it was him. And I was in the birth room with my second, because I had been there for my daughter for the second baby. And everybody comes in and they're bringing in, you know, champagne and cake and a birthday cake for the baby. And he comes in and I'm like, oh, okay, you're good. You are compatible. You're fine with him. And the man sits down. Here's a chair here. There's a little couch. He chooses, here's the end of the couch, and I'm sitting here. He chooses to sit right there at the end of the couch. And the comfort and the just comfort was there in his energy. The comfort. And it wasn't me that shifted. It was him and his undefended heart. And it was a way for him to open, because he has not had a heart attack since. Isn't that fascinating, right? So when we choose to suffer rather than to take that exquisite risk, we are choosing to stay blocked. We're choosing to stop ourselves from the magnificence that God has designed for us, that our soul has designed for us. And how do you know, so look at, you know, how do you hold on to that cocoon? How do we hold on to it? And so now that I've shared a couple of stories with you, I want to take you into just just take for a minute, just get present. And you can close your eyes or not close your eyes. But bring to mind somebody that you care about and that you may have some issues with them. Bring them to mind right now. How do you hold on to your heart? How do you not allow that relationship to shift and grow? How do you hold it? And what do you want this person to see about you? Maybe you've been in a fight for a long time. Maybe there's been something that you've been afraid to tell them. Gosh, I'd really love it if you would, da-da-da, okay? What would you like them to know or see about you? Because we all have an energy around us, and we all have the divine within us. And if we're willing to take a moment and be present to that individual, we see their magnificence, we see their beauty, we see who they are. And even the person that works your last nerve, you know, and I thought about it and I go, oh, darn. And I think about individuals that I'm not crazy about, and I thought, this is a high practice. How do I be with somebody who I was upset with in the past, or they annoy me? How can I do that practice of moving into my heart and taking the risk of letting go of judgment and allowing that love to flow? Because if we're practicing judgment, what's going to happen? We're going to have more judgment, aren't we? Because this is just pure science of mind. This is just spiritual practice. If we do not get aware of what we're present to all of the time, how are we going to shift? So sense into what you don't want them to see about you. What don't you want them to see about you? And be aware of that. And then bring a recent time where you were together and you were open. Were you open? Were you present? Or were you habitual? Were you in your cocoon? Were you acting like you always act? Were you in your old skin? Were you in your old way of being? Or were you willing to take that risk and be present and vulnerable with them? My daughter and I took that risk last week. And she took the risk by saying, gosh, Mom, I felt so loved when you made me that tea. I just got tears in my eyes. So are you willing with an individual to take that risk in order to open them, in order to open your heart? Because it's not about them. It's always about us. It's always about us. And it's always about what we can do to change and grow. And how can we be more real, okay? So, are you worried they're not going to like you? Are you worried that it's never going to get resolved? So just be present to it. And how can you shift that old way of being in order to move into another way of being? That's really what this is about. So underneath all this is that we don't feel worthy, we don't feel that we're good enough, we don't feel that we have what it takes, we don't feel like we're the cool kid at school, like Roxy said. And it's really about just allowing ourselves to be fully present all of the time and just show yourself. How scary is that? But it's not, because when you show your authentic, loving self, when you show that loving kindness, your whole world will shift around you, won't it? So with that, next time you're with that individual, allow yourself to be a different way. And it's darn uncomfortable, because there's certain people that you just want to walk away, you don't want to engage in them, and it's just be present. And if it's somebody like a mom and dad, or a child, or a brother or sister, it doesn't matter. Allow yourself to get present. Allow yourself to be in that space of risking. Allow yourself to go into the love. So here's I'm going to pass this out. Oh, maybe I don't have enough. I thought I did. I'm going to read this, and I think we have enough copies, and if not, I'll get some more for you. This is called the Power of Peace Meditation. And it's really beautiful, because it's a way to accept yourself, and it's going to be an opening for you in order to release and move into a better expression and relationship with each other. So I'm going to read this aloud, and you can just take it in. I feel with unconditional trust that I am the whole of the universe, and all that I see is me. I feel at my deepest level the power of being who I am. I feel the willingness and the readiness to exercise the power of being who I am. I feel the gentleness of my own power and the absolute certainty of knowing that my power is the power of peace. I feel the conviction and trust of myself so totally that I no longer need to project anything but absolute and unconditional love. I feel in totality the infinite variety of my beingness. I feel the warmth and peace of unconditionally loving my own infinite self. And at this deep feeling level, I this moment yield to the power of myself, totally trusting my unconditional love and support for all of me, and accept all that I see as the expression and the experience of this power. Beautiful? So with that, take a risk, beloved ones. Be willing to step out into the world and open your hearts. Lead with your heart. Lead with the love, because that's going to create the miracles. That's going to create everything you desire in your life. Allow yourself to forgive somebody. Allow yourself to let go of that old way of being. And when you do, your whole life will be miraculous and joyful, and it will shift, and I can't even tell you how, because what's going to shift is going to be totally unique to you, and totally unique to that other individual.